The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Santa Monica Pier as Emma Rodriguez carefully maneuvered her wheelchair along the wooden boardwalk. At 16, she had learned to navigate the world with both determination and caution, especially in crowded places where people often seemed to forget that wheelchairs required extra space. The pier was bustling with typical weekend energy. Families strolled between carnival games and food stands. Couples shared cotton candy while watching street performers, and children ran excitedly toward the famous Ferris wheel. Emma loved coming here with her older brother Carlos, but today he was working, so she had convinced her parents to let her spend a few hours alone, enjoying the ocean breeze and the vibrant atmosphere. She had just purchased a lemonade from one of the vendors when she noticed them. 3 teenagers, probably around her age, were lounging near the arcade entrance. They wore expensive clothes and carried themselves with the kind of arrogance that often came with privilege and too little supervision. Emma had encountered their type before, kids who seemed to think cruelty was entertaining. The leader of the group was a tall boy with perfectly styled hair and cold eyes. His name was Blake, though Emma didn't know that yet. Beside him stood his girlfriend Madison, whose designer outfit probably cost more than Emma's family spent on groceries in a month. The third member was Tyler, Blake's loyal follower who laughed at everything Blake said. Whether it was funny or not, Emma tried to steer clear of them, but the pier was crowded, and her path inevitably brought her closer to where they stood. She kept her eyes forward, hoping to pass by unnoticed. But luck wasn't on her side that day. "Hey, watch where you're going!" Blake called out as Emma's wheelchair came within a few feet of their group. Emma stopped and looked up, confused. She hadn't been near enough to bother anyone, hadn't even brushed against them. "I'm sorry, I didn't—" "You didn't what?" Blake interrupted, stepping closer with a sneer. "You didn't realize you're taking up the whole walkway with that thing?" Madison giggled, a sound like breaking glass. "Some people are so inconsiderate." Emma felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment and rising anger. "I'm not blocking anything. There's plenty of room for everyone." "Is there?" Blake asked mockingly. He deliberately stepped in front of Emma's wheelchair, forcing her to stop completely. "Doesn't look like there's room to me." Other people on the pier were starting to notice the confrontation, but most hurried past with averted eyes, not wanting to get involved. Emma felt increasingly isolated as the 3 teenagers closed in around her. "You know what your problem is?" Blake continued, his voice getting louder and more aggressive. "You think the world owes you something just because you're in that chair. You think people should get out of your way, make special accommodations for you?" "That's not true," Emma said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. "I just want to enjoy the pier like everyone else." Tyler laughed cruelly. "Enjoy the pier? What can you even do here? You can't ride the rides, you can't play most of the games. Why don't you just go home where you belong?" The words stung, each one designed to wound. Emma had heard variations of this cruelty before, but it never got easier. She gripped the wheels of her chair, preparing to turn around and leave, when Blake did something unforgivable. He kicked her wheelchair, hard enough to jar Emma and cause her lemonade to spill across her lap. "Move, Cripple!" he shouted, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Stop blocking the walkway for normal people." The shock of the physical aggression left Emma momentarily speechless. The cold lemonade soaked through her jeans, but that was nothing compared to the humiliation of being attacked so publicly. Around them, she could see people stopping to stare, some looking horrified, others uncomfortably turning away. Madison was filming the whole thing on her phone, clearly delighted by the entertainment. "This is going to get so many likes," she said gleefully. Emma felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she fought them back. She wouldn't give these bullies the satisfaction of seeing her cry. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and prepared to leave with whatever dignity she could maintain. That's when she heard it. The deep, rumbling sound of motorcycle engines. At first, it was just background noise, the kind of sound that was common around the pier. But as the engines grew louder and closer, even Blake and his friends began to notice. They turned toward the sound, their expressions shifting from cruel amusement to confusion. A group of motorcycles was pulling into the pier's parking area, their chrome gleaming in the afternoon sun. But this wasn't just any group of bikers. These were members of the Guardians MC, a motorcycle club known throughout Southern California for their charitable work and protection of vulnerable community members. The lead rider was a woman in her 40s named Sarah Steele Martinez. She was small in stature but commanded enormous respect within the biker community. Behind her rode 12 other members of the club, men and women of various ages, all united by their commitment to standing up for those who couldn't defend themselves. Sarah had actually been at the Pier with her club for a charity event, raising money for disabled veterans. They were about to leave when she noticed the commotion near the arcade. Years of experience had taught her to recognize the dynamics of bullying, and what she saw made her blood boil. The bikers dismounted their machines in coordinated silence, their leather jackets bearing the Guardian's MC patch clearly visible. They moved as one unit, their heavy boots echoing on the wooden boardwalk as they approached the scene. Blake, Madison, and Tyler suddenly found themselves surrounded by a circle of leather-clad figures who towered over them. The transformation was immediate. Their arrogant confidence evaporated like morning fog, replaced by obvious fear. "Is there a problem here?" Sarah asked, her voice calm but carrying an unmistakable edge of authority. Blake's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The boy who had been so cruel and confident moments before now looked like exactly what he was, a spoiled teenager who had never faced real consequences for his actions. We weren't doing anything," he stammered. "That's funny," said Marcus, one of Sarah's riding companions, a giant of a man with arms covered in tattoos. "Because what I saw was 3 punks attacking a young lady in a wheelchair. Did anyone else see that?" A chorus of agreement rose from the other bikers, their voices a low rumble of disapproval. Sarah knelt down beside Emma's wheelchair, her intimidating exterior melting away to reveal genuine kindness. "Are you okay, sweetheart? Did they hurt you?" Emma looked up at this unexpected guardian angel and felt a wave of relief wash over her. "I'm okay. They kicked my chair, but I'm not hurt." Sarah's expression hardened as she stood back up and fixed Blake with a stare that could have melted steel. "You kicked her wheelchair?" "It was just, I barely touched it," Blake protested weakly. "Just barely touched it," Marcus repeated, his voice dripping with disdain. "You know what, kid? Why don't you show us exactly how you barely touched it? Try it on me." Blake took a step backward, bumping into another biker who had moved to block his retreat. The circle was tightening and there was nowhere to run. "I don't think that's necessary," Blake said quickly. "Oh, but I think it is," Sarah said firmly. "You see, we have a very simple rule in life. We treat people the way they treat others. You want to push around someone in a wheelchair? Let's see how you handle being pushed around by people bigger than you." Madison tried to slip away, but found her path blocked by a female biker named Rosa, who was even more imposing than most of the men. "Where do you think you're going, princess?" Rosa asked. "You were part of this party too. I saw you filming it like it was entertainment." By now, a significant crowd had gathered to watch the confrontation, but the mood was very different from when the bullies had been attacking Emma. Now the onlookers were clearly on the side of the bikers and the girl they were protecting. "Someone call the police," Madison demanded shrilly. "Already did," said an older man from the crowd. "They should be here soon to deal with you 3. Sarah turned to address the gathered crowd. "Folks, this young lady was just trying to enjoy her day at the pier when these 3 decided to attack her for no reason other than the fact that she's in a wheelchair. They kicked her chair, called her names, and tried to humiliate her in public." The crowd's murmur of disapproval grew louder. Several people began calling out their own condemnation of the bully's behavior. "That's disgusting," said a mother holding her young daughter's hand. "Cowards," called out an elderly veteran. "You should be ashamed of yourselves," added a teenage girl about Emma's age. Tyler, who had been so eager to join in the bullying when it seemed safe, was now practically in tears. "We're sorry," he said desperately. "We didn't mean anything by it." "Didn't mean anything?" Marcus asked incredulously. "You attacked a disabled girl for fun and you didn't mean anything by it?" Sarah held up her hand for quiet. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being listened to. "Here's what's going to happen. You 3 are going to apologize to this young lady. A real apology, not some half-hearted mumbling. You're going to mean it. And you're going to remember this moment every time you think about picking on someone who can't fight back. Blake looked around desperately, but there was no escape from the circle of disapproving faces. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Louder, Sarah commanded. And look at her when you say it. Blake met Emma's eyes and for the first time seemed to see her as a real person rather than a target. I'm sorry, he said more clearly. I was wrong to kick your wheelchair and call you names. It was cruel and stupid. Madison and Tyler followed with their own apologies, their voices shaking with fear and genuine remorse. Emma listened to their words, seeing the fear in their eyes, the regret that was clearly real. She thought about how to respond, what her parents and brother would want her to say. I accept your apologies, she said finally, but I hope you'll remember this. Remember how it feels to be surrounded and afraid? And maybe next time you'll think twice before you make someone else feel that way. Just then, 2 police officers arrived, having been called by several witnesses. After hearing multiple accounts of what had happened, they issued citations to Blake, Madison, and Tyler for harassment and assault. The incident would also be reported to their school, as all 3 were wearing Letterman jackets that identified where they attended. As the police handled the legal matters, Sarah and her fellow bikers stayed with Emma, making sure she was truly okay and didn't need medical attention. They cleaned up the spilled lemonade and bought her a new drink, treating her with the kind of respect and kindness that should have been automatic but felt precious after what she'd endured. You handled that really well, Sarah told her as things began to calm down. You showed more maturity and grace than those 3 put together. Emma smiled, feeling stronger than she had when the day began. Thank you for standing up for me. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been here. That's what we do, Marcus said simply. We look out for each other. As the bikers prepared to leave, several of them gave Emma their contact information, inviting her to attend some of their charity events and reminding her that she had friends in the community if she ever needed help. The crowd that had gathered began to disperse, many people stopping to offer Emma words of support and encouragement. The atmosphere on the pier had completely changed. What had started as a scene of cruelty had become a powerful demonstration of community solidarity. Later, as Emma called her parents to let them know what had happened, she reflected on the day's events. She had learned something important about the world, that while there would always be people who chose cruelty, there were also those who chose to stand up for what was right. The Guardian's MC had shown her that true strength wasn't about picking on those who were different or vulnerable. True strength was about protecting those who needed protection, standing up to bullies, and creating a world where everyone could enjoy simple pleasures like a day at the pier without fear. As she watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Emma felt grateful not just for her unexpected protectors, but for the reminder that goodness and courage could appear in the most unlikely forms, sometimes wearing leather jackets and riding motorcycles, but always ready to do what was right.